Hey guys, and welcome to Slasher X Games. So much like Super Meat Boy, perhaps you're creating a game that has time constraints, some sort of destination, and obstacles, and you'd like to show the player where he went wrong so that in his next attempt, he can better his playstyle and not make the same mistakes. So you want to show the player some sort of ghost player that he can then use to gauge how well he's doing this time around. So today I'm going to be showing you how to do just that. I'm going to be using my platform tutorial series to help us out because it looks fantastic and we can best demonstrate how the various variables will be recorded and played back on subsequent attempts. So let's jump straight into the code and see how we can make this happen. So here we are in the project files of one of my latest platform videos. We have sprites that contain the various images for our player and the different stances, backgrounds, just a tile set, scripts to handle key detection, sprite setting, collisions, stuff like that. And then in objects, we've got our player and the block that he stands on. And then in our rooms, we've just got the game world. Let's take that grid off, zoom out, so you can see the terrain or just tile sets, so that's quite lightweight. And it's actually this invisible block that the player runs on. And then we can see we've got some gaps that he can fall through and such. So whenever he falls through a gap, it's going to trigger the end of the game, so it's going to restart, and then we're going to have a controller that's going to create a ghost player for every attempt that the player made within his session. Okay, cool. So first things first, let us create a boot room because we need to create a variable, a global variable. So that's going to be 1280 by 720. Okay, let's make this black. Settings, creation code. Alright, so firstly we want to say global dot attempt number equals 0. So every time we die, quote unquote die, fall out of the screen, this is going to go up by 1. And this is going to tell us exactly how many recordings or previous attempts we have. And then immediately after, let's go to room game world. Okay, so that's going to just initialize this variable, make it available to us for later use, and then go to the game world. Cool stuff. So let's go to object player. Right now we've got some variables that are being declared. We've got the step event that calls these certain scripts that do all kinds of certain things in a specific order. So we need to keep track of these steps that are running. Every step we capture XY coordinates, sprite index, image index, maybe directions, different things like that, that would help the ghost player look more as if the player was manipulating him right now. So step equals 0 on create. It's like a counter. Then in our step event, I'm going to create a 2D array called actions. So actions is going to take the current step, and the very first index, which is 0, is going to be our x coordinate. Actions step 1 is going to be our y coordinate. Actions step 2, this is going to be our sprite index. Actions step 3 is going to be our image index. And because our player turns left and right, and that is through the manipulation of the image x scale, actions step 4 is going to equal the image x scale. Now if you were making a racing game, it's really cool to have your ghost racer so that you can see how fast your previous lap was. So you could easily have the x, y, the sprite index, and for image x scale you could have the image angle, and that'll simulate the car turning about. And then I need to take a step and increment it by 1, because this has been 1 step, so the next time it'll be 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps, and so on, until we fall through a hole and that stops. Speaking of which, let's add an event, other, outside room. Now you could always just have whatever I'm going to put in this script when the player gets killed or when he goes through a lap of the circuit. And this is going to say, well, global.attempts. This is a global variable I haven't created yet. It's also going to be a 2D array. It's going to take the global attempt number from boot room. There it is. It's actually going to be called attempts number. And 0, the first element, is going to equal the actions array. So it's like a 2D array within a 2D array. So global attempts is going to be a 2D array containing other 2D arrays, which are going to be the actions, as well as, copy this, global attempts number 1 steps. So that's going to say, for this attempt of getting to the goal, the first element in that array will be our 2D array of actions. The second element in that array will be the number of steps it took us to get to the end of those actions. If the player died within 1,000 steps, we can't tell it to act out the 1001 step of 1,000 steps, because then it's going to throw an index out of range exception, and that's a big problem. So make sure that you are doing it in this exact way. And now that the player has crashed and burned, we need to make sure that global attempts number is incremented by 1. So the very first time that the player tries to get to the goal, that'll be 0. The next time, that'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And each attempt will then spawn a new little ghost man, and that's actually what we should be creating next. Room restart. Okay, so that's like quote-unquote death right over there. We go outside the room, it does the math, it puts a new element in that array, and it restarts our room. So let's go ahead and create that ghost player. Object ghost. Okay, no sprite. Add an event. Create event. Again, local variable called step. Set it to 0. I'm going to change the image alpha to 0.5, so it kind of looks ghost-like. I don't want the player thinking that he's actually controlling the ghost players. He needs to know that those were previous players, and also we'll be able to see our player if they overlap. Alright, so then we're going to add a step event, and this is going to be acting out the steps that we've saved. I'm going to say, well, if step is less than max step. Now, I haven't created max step, you don't know what it is, but that's okay. That's going to be the maximum amount of steps that we have recorded. So obviously we don't want to do anything here if it's equal to max step. So I'm going to say at this step, the x coordinate of the ghost is equal to his action, step, and 0. His y coordinate is equal to actions, step 1. His sprite index is equal to actions, step 2. His image index is equal to actions, step 3. And his image x scale is equal to actions, step 4. Just like that. And obviously step plus plus, because the step hasn't been incremented. And here you can even say else instance destroy if you don't want this guy hanging around after he has played out his whole recording. Or you can just have him stay there pretty much. Alright, so max step, where does this come from? But before we go into that, let's find out what's going on here. So in my object player, in the step events over here, right at the bottom, we're recording the actions for every step 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. X, Y, sprite index, image index, X scale. Now notice we're reading them in the exact same order. 0 is the X, 0 is the X, 1 is the Y, 2 is the sprite index, 3 is the image index, and 4 is the scale. So I'm taking what our player did, 0 to 4, and I'm pasting it basically into our ghost, and he's playing it out as if he was a puppet. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually create an instance of a ghost for every attempt that the player made. So every one of these, we're going to create one ghost. I'm going to call this controller. I love using controllers. It's going to have a create event. Here I'm going to say for var I equals 0, I is less than global dot attempts number I plus plus. Okay, so for every attempt we made, it's going to say with instance create. I can put it anyway, x, y, because the first step will update that x and y coordinate. Object ghost. Alright, with constructor here. actions equals global dot attempts I 0, and here's max step equals global dot attempts I 1. Okay, so actions, that's this. Max step, well, that's this, right over there. So when we are destroyed, our max step is going to be equal to the last known value of step, and this step value goes up every step over here of the player, just like that. Save everything. Make sure that boot is before game world. In game world, let's go ahead and add that object controller to our room. Save. And let's see what happens. So every time we are playing, it's recording our steps, our progress. It's recording our sprite index, our image index. At that time, our image X scale. At that step, it's putting it in that array. It's waiting for us to die. When we die, saves us that global array. The game is restarted. Our controller says for every attempt the player tried, create a ghost. A ghost is created and it's given the actions of the previous attempt. So let's run this and see what happens. Here's our first player. He's running. I'm going to fall straight down the first hole on this one. Here he goes. Oops. Okay, error. Action not set. This is supposed to be actions on the outside room. So player, outside room, actions. That needs to map up to this one. Actions. Alright, let's try again. Save. Run. Okay, falling down. I'm going to go straight down the first hole. There we go. Okay, there's our ghost. He's doing exactly what we did. And he's going to fall down that hole. I'm going to follow him. Now we should have two ghosts. Two ghosts, there they are. I'm going to jump back again so we can see that image X scale happening. Let's go down the first hole with those guys. Okay, and so on. And every time we do a failed attempt, the ghost player, well, the number of ghost players is going to increase by 1. So this guy's going right to the end. Look at that, okay. And now if we follow him over here, let's sit over here and watch him. One of these guys is going to go further than the other. There he is. He's right here in front. And you can race him. Try not to make the mistakes he made. Get to the end. Get to the objective. Very similar to the way Super Meat Boy does its ghosting effect to show you the player's previous attempts. So I hope you found this video educational and helpful. Please feel free to comment, rate, and subscribe. If you have any fantastic suggestions, please send me a PM. If you like what I'm doing here, please check out my Patreon campaign. I do appreciate your support. I'm trying to get to $100 so I can release more videos per week for you guys. I've also got a game on the Amazon App Store. Please check it out. It's called Element Earth. Project files for this tutorial can be found in the description. You can follow me on various social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Links all in the description. So until next time, happy coding, and I'll see you then.